All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome. This is Filecoin Core Devs call number 47. Today is Thursday, July 14th, and today is meeting 1 of 2. Pretty packed agenda for today. We've been really efficient lately, so we'll see how quickly we move through some of these items. But I think key goal today is to really begin to nail down some details around the V17 network upgrade. There are a lot of open challenges here that we can talk through, but I think we're moving towards resolution so that teams can begin work, and we'll know what the next couple of months will look like, at least on the FIP side. So excited to move through that. And also Kuba has joined us, and he's going to talk about one of those FIPs, which is FIP 41, forward compatibility for pre-commit and replica update. So with that, would the Forest team like to kick us off with updates and any open questions or needs that they may have?
Sure. So Wyatt helped us a lot nailing down the last bug that was keeping us from joining the Skyr upgrade. So we got that fixed, and yeah, now everything works. So yeah, like it would have taken like several more weeks without Wyatt support. So we are very, very thankful. And yeah, we're now gonna move forward and make a new release and then start creating regular CalibNet snapshots. Yeah, and that's all for Forest.
Great.
Cool, great to hear about CalibNet snapshots. That's something that we don't really like. Some folks like share, and we kind of have that service, but like it'd be really useful to have that. So that's awesome.
Lotus team, you want to pick up the ball and go next?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, so obviously, as I'm sure we all were, we're focused on Skyr over the past couple of weeks. Glad to see that network upgrade ran smoothly. A couple relevant updates that I'll provide. We did ship a patch release of Lotus 116.1 that fixed one issue that emerged from the upgrade, which is that for the first time, sometimes messages can require more gas than the actual block gas limit allows. And in particular, we discovered that submit window post messages, if they have a lot of partitions being proved in the same message, can hit that. And so some service providers did run into that issue. The quick solution was just to break up those messages so that you're proving, break them up into proving two messages of half as many partitions. We probably need to do more analysis into how we want to maybe potentially change limits in actors code as a result of that. Aside from that, I think things seem to go super smoothly. We were a little distracted for our June. We tried to do monthly feature releases, but our June feature release wound up being we couldn't give it the attention it needed. So we're kind of skipping that / saying that the mandatory release was the June release, and merged the June and July releases that have started testing as of yesterday. And there's some good stuff in there, some good fixes. So yeah, that's about it from Lotus.
Do you guys, I know you were talking previously about taking some time off also between July and August. Do you have any like major out of office notices that everyone else should be aware of? Or is it just individual teammates sort of taking breaks here and there?
It is individual teammates taking breaks here and there, and we've just started, that picture is just kind of falling in place. What I'll say is that we'll probably be working at about half capacity until the midpoint or the end of August. So we're obviously staggering it so that we're not all out at the same time, but the overall productivity will be a little less. We're also all planning on being at Phil Singapore, which is happening August 16th to 19th, I think, which will be exciting to attend, but also will affect how responsive we are to kind of the day-to-day operations.
Sounds great. Any questions for Lotus? Any follow-up questions for Forest? All right. On the Venus side, team keeps pushing out updates, which is great to see. Venus Messenger, they actually submitted some CLI improvements and also some changes to help mitigate congestion on the network to support V16. Continue to work on data retrieval information for Venus Market and increasing support for Venus Cluster. I think the most important thing here to note is that Venus is going to take the lead in designing FIP 29 for all of the other implementations. This is great since Stephen is also its author. And we'll talk a little bit more too about sort of how we see the lines of responsibility falling for these primary FIP designs and implementation pathways for V17 later in this call today too. That said, any questions for the Venus team that you'd like me to transmit over to the meeting later today?
I'd definitely be interested in hearing more about that first point about Venus Messenger and how there any work they did to mitigate V16 message congestion, because Lotus had the same problem and we have a very, very imperfect solution right now.
Yeah.
So definitely interested in hearing more about that. If they can link us to a PR or any description, that'd be cool.
Yeah, for sure. I will get it for you. All right. So updates from the Filecoin Foundation, updated list of FIPS and where all of them stand. I think the most important thing to note is that FIP 34, set pre-commit deposit, is now in last call and will be for the next 2 weeks. Everyone should be familiar with this FIP. We've discussed it extensively and it's been open for quite a while now. But if you have any questions, I'd highly recommend taking a look at the open draft, or you can let me know and we can go through it also. We also have quite a few FIPs that have been merged into the repo just to make sure everything is in orderly fashion as we have these conversations about planning and scoping for the next network upgrade. And sort of the one open FIP right now that's still being worked on, and there's quite a bit of community discussion around, is this bottom one, the sector duration multiple for longer term storage commitment, which was presented at a previous core devs call and is being stewarded primarily by the Crypto Econ Lab network. Again, highly recommend to continue to take a look at the repo and check out the weekly governance updates, which are also shared in PhilFips, because this is the shortest way to sort of get all of these updates in between our core devs calls. That being said, I also wanted to share, I checked in with Parth, there are no security flags, so I wanted to use this section to actually give you some updates on some of the upcoming sort of like work stuff that you're going to see from the governance team, which is me. The number one thing is hiring. The governance team is only me right now, and there is zero capacity for work, extremely stretched thin, which as a note, if you're ever waiting on anything, you need anything, please push and ping me, because odds are it's sitting under 30 other to-do list items for Slack messages. But we are looking to add at least one, if not a few, project managers to the governance team to help us. We're earlier in the hiring process, but this is a huge priority at the moment so that we can get some additional capacity. And the hope is that they will be able to support with some of the direct FIPS management also. So I will keep you apprised so that you know what's going on and what new folks may be popping into these meetings, but wanted to flag. And also version 17, the network upgrade, is already sort of creating many, many open questions and competing interests, which we'll have to sort of manage and negotiate in the coming weeks. We're going to create a FIP tracking table that will be added to GitHub. It's going to look very similar to the ones that all of the implementation teams filled out this week, sort of reflecting on their capacity and sort of implementation needs for different FIPs. But this will be a good way for us to track things as they are sort of developed and pushed into the repo in tandem, which is a sort of process that we don't usually have. We're going to make public, very detailed FIP management workflows so that we can audit how things are currently going, and you can make requests if you want additional support or think there's something that we should be doing better. And we also, of course, have our upcoming changes to the core devs meeting format and scoping some updates to FIP1. These are not radical changes. It's just to make this document a little bit more current with how we're currently managing FIPs and other governance topics within the Filecoin ecosystem. A lot of question or a lot of information. Does anyone have any questions or ideas, thoughts, things to share?
Yeah, I'm personally not really an idea, but I'm personally definitely feeling a little overwhelmed by the amount of stuff, the amount of potential ideas for V17 and just overall FIPS. I'm glad to have that tracking table. I think that'll help help keep us all on the same page, because I think there's a lot of scope for a little bit of chaos, but a good problem to have.
And just a little bit of chaos. The decentralized chaos specters are at our door once more, and we fought them off before, so I think we will this time too. But yeah, if you're ever feeling that confusion really handily and it's affecting your ability to sort of think about your work in the moment or over the coming days too, let me know, because I know that's a point that some teams have fallen into during previous upgrades, and we really want to avoid that. So I think today, we're not going to have like a really set resolution on what V17 is going to look like, but we will get closer. And the hope is that we can continue to move towards that relatively quickly, so that there's some certainty over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, something I'd like to add. I think this is really great progress from how we had been doing things since last year. You know, now we have presenters for FIPS, and then we have this tracking table, and we have consensus on which needs to be added. I think this is fantastic from what has happened and the progress that we have made. The only thing, so on the FIP updates, I can see there's a different draft numbers. Sorry, there's some feedback on somebody on your own, Katie.
Oh, sorry, I'm in a shared workspace. I can mute for you.
Yeah, so when I see the drafts, right? So and the tracking table, we had FIP 29, 34, 35. However, you know, the ones that are merged here, some of them, I think 37, 39 are not in the table, and we have some other FIPs that are not really merged yet. So perhaps maybe when we're discussing about the scope of the network upgrade, we can look at the ones that are merged first and put them in the table compared to the ones that are still in discussion or really don't have a number. I think that will help streamline some of the things.
Yes, great observation, good suggestion. This is part of the complication that's emerging around this FIP upgrade. Jennifer, did you want to jump in? It looks like you have a question.
Sorry, it's a different topic.
Okay, so for this, one point of constant confusion that I don't quite know how to battle, this is unrelated to this upgrade in particular, is that if we leave something open as a PR, indicating that it's sort of still in need of review or there's still a lot of changes happening, it makes it difficult to push those changes and keep the draft current. When we merge it, even if it is still indicated as a draft, folks rightfully tend to think that it is more final or is like imminently going to be accepted. Not always the case. The differentiation between like a draft that is a PR and a draft that has been merged into the repo is very slight. It's really pretty arbitrary. It's really just has to do with whether the draft seems mostly complete and the author is actively still working on it. So there is nothing to really distinguish like where those things are. You're right that there are some things here that were not in your table to like really consider. Of course, you're always welcome to go and like throw in additional options here. But the message replay protection and then the gas model for user programmability, these are not high priorities at the moment. And given other things that are, they just weren't included for consideration. We can reconsider, of course, but at the time they didn't seem, especially FIP 37, Raul has not indicated that this is one that needs to go forward in V18 or in V17. Other than this, where you're seeing those like additional FIPs to consider that aren't open as drafts yet, this is part of the challenge of this upgrade is that we've been specifically asked to consider these FIPs because they have been planned or they are dependent on other FIPs. But for various reasons, whether that be a testing requirement, a new parameter that needs to be modeled, etc., work capacity being one of them, there is not a FIP draft yet. And that is a challenge for me and hopefully something that I can help manage confusion around. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you for the clarification. Yeah, I think that helps. Because just wondering why they were not there and vice versa, but I think you cleared that confusion for us. Cool.
Yeah, and I think you and Jennifer had each asked that there be like a cutoff date by which point we need FIPs, and my original opinion was that that's not super helpful. I think in this case, for the very reason that we're being asked to consider things that don't have full drafts yet, even if there's a lot of documentation available, I think ultimately you guys are right. I think we're going to need them, so we can talk about them today too. Jennifer, did you have a question?
Yes, I also feel like the tracking table will be like super helpful. However, I feel like there's a missing state of a FIP. It's like it can be in draft, it can be in last call, it can be accepted, but like even an accepted FIP doesn't mean it will be prioritized for the next immediate network upgrade. So like I feel like I don't know what state it should be, but I feel like we need a state for FIP that is like being actively considered for the upcoming upgrade. Does that make sense? Like even like a draft FIP can be in that status, right? Like it's like even though it's dropped, but we think it's like high priority, so we will be more engaged to make sure that FIP is like going through last call and like be accepted and finalizing the upcoming upgrade. So like I don't know how it looks, like just an idea. I also want to mention it's like especially for like FIP example, like for example, the sector duration multiple for longer term storage commitment, I would say like a FIP has like a very active discussion doesn't mean it will be implemented in the upcoming network upgrade. I feel like there's a gray line there, because I'm mentioning this because I started to observe in multiple community chat that saying that the teams are pushing for that FIP to be in the next upgrade and are making assumptions. So I just want to make that clarification. It's like active discussion doesn't mean it's finalized or accepted.
Yeah, and to your point, FIP 29, this has been accepted for months, wasn't included in V16. Maybe include in V17 because there's time and capacity. But yeah, you're right. That's a good distinction to make. So currently there's just tags for like when FIPs are being considered for different network upgrades, but these are just made in the discussion repo, which also makes them harder to sort of keep really current. But if you think, yeah, we can also add like a FIP category for something that like a core dev is considering.
Yeah, I like the idea to have a label of it's like scope for a certain network upgrade. FIP can even, for example, 2 months ago, we already know FIP 29 will be scope for V70. We can just throw a label on top of it. It could be nice.
Yep. All right. Any other questions, ideas, concerns, needs? All right. So then one last update from me is that the next core devs call we have will switch us to our new format that we've discussed for weeks now. There's a rollout plan available on GitHub if you want to see details of this. But the idea is that this first call is going to happen on Thursday, August 4th. It had previously been discussed and decided that there would be one meeting per day for up to an hour, and that every other month we would switch timing to accommodate different time zones. So for all of us, once every 2 months, you will have sort of an inconvenient meeting time, but it's decided that the two different meeting structure just isn't working for right now. And I think it's affecting our overall attendance, as well as like the cogency of information that's shared. Also know that this meeting will introduce a new format that is a little bit more formal. You'll have materials in advance because the hope is that we can have more engineering focused conversations, fewer updates, and that way if there are any materials that are being discussed in particular, you'll have at least a week to review that prior to the actual meeting. All materials, including invites for these new meetings, are going to be sent out in the next couple of days. And we're also going to have a much more formalized attendance list, as well as really clearly scoped responsibilities for what a core dev is and what they are asked to do within the ecosystem. None of this should be new, but if you have questions, now is the time to ask. All right, great. I, for one, am very excited about this. So fingers crossed it'll go great. And hopefully we have a lot of folks who attend, that this is like a high value add to what are usually very packed meeting schedules. Okay, keeping our placeholder card for Network V16. I didn't want to take this out because I wanted to touch on questions about a retro. Previously, it had been said that there may be a retro coming from either within the FVM or Lotus teams. I thought could have misunderstood and could have changed, but I just wanted to give everyone a chance to kind of sort of share any info with everyone else if they have it, or to figure out whether or not this is something that we still need to schedule.
Yeah, there's a retro is going to be hosted, multiple retro will going out like from the Lotus team, and we will try to store ship this one, but like maybe next time someone else can take it. Yeah, but the idea is like Lotus will first like do a joint one with like the FVM team and gather the feedbacks, because there was a lot of like interaction between our two teams. Zen Lotus will also do a smaller one with the Forest team, but mostly between like Zen, myself, like Lee, David, who like spent a lot of effort working collaboratively on the testing effort. We want to figure out how can we work together like even better next time. Forest team obviously is welcome to join the Lotus and FEM like retro as well. I will send invite to everyone. However, but like just be aware that there will be a lot of like management related stuff just like between these two teams as well. If you want to leave like async retro points about like Forest and FEM, that's an option too. But everything will come in next week because Raul is finally taking a break this week, but he didn't really do a good job on taking vacations. But anyhow, that's a different story. But retro is coming next week. And then I will also have the synthesis and summary of the retro shared with all implementers after those are performed.
Great. If someone wants to participate in the async retro, I'm thinking the Venus team may want to, where can I point them? Do you know yet?
I will have a sticky board. I will share that in the field implementers channel for everyone to access.
Okay, thank you. Any other feedback or anything anyone wants to flag with the group right now? All right. So then moving on to our next large scope of work, Network V17, again, lots of different sort of variables that have emerged very recently, making this a little bit complicated to sort of think and plan for. Thanks to everyone for taking a few minutes to sort of review these at a high level and put together your thoughts for implementation. The 5 FIPS that we have right here are the ones that we've been considering for the longest period of time. And it looks like there is consensus for everyone that these are high value and ones that there is time and capacity to implement. I did want to ask about this last one, since there is not a FIP draft for it. Jennifer, we knew that the Lotus team was working with the Crypto Net Lab to model the implementation of this and do some like early tests.
Yeah, we actually have Sen here, so I don't know if
Great.
he wants to speak of it or shy.
Yeah, there's not too much to speak about. More or less, I'm delayed working on Lotus specific things. My next order of business after wrapping that stuff up is going to be prototyping this, which I think is going to flesh out some design decisions and is more or less blocking writing a FIP draft. We do have Kuba here too, who might know a little bit more about like the straight up top down like design. There might be enough to create a draft, which we could then augment with design changes that come from prototyping if like that's a problem. Yeah,
like I think we could create a draft that conveys the idea and why we're doing it. It would be missing out on specification in big parts, or the specification would change significantly, most likely, because of like it's hard to pre-specify this part of the system. Like the complexity is very high over there, as Zen mentioned. So yeah, like depending on like what we need, like we can proceed as needed, like Caitlin. Yeah.
Sure.
So timeline-wise, I will say expect a early draft later July, early August, but the final one that's ready for last call with like implementation specifications that will be coming later in August, early in September for like before it can go last call. Kuba and Sender sounds. Does that sound like reasonable for now?
Yeah, I think so. Like yeah, like I'm like yeah, like. So like we are really hoping we can get this in like as it's like it will be most like it's mostly actors change slash like yeah actors change, and like there will be some changes on the implementation side, especially how we interact with field class, but yeah, like it's an important component to further updates we're planning around programmable storage markets.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Sounds good. So I know Alex North has put together a lot of documentation for this too, and it looks like what is almost a complete FIP draft does exist within the repo. or the discussion forum. So I don't know if it's super necessary to create like a draft right away if all of the specs are going to change. My preference would be for there to be one so that we can make reference to it and begin to share it with the Filecoin Plus team more formally. I know this has been presented to them, but I know they have a lot of open questions still. And just some hesitations around any proposed change to their program. So we'll have to talk with them too. If you, again, I think if you could put together like a draft, even if it is changeable, that is preferred, but there's no tight deadline or ask around this. So whatever works for your workflow is fine.
Right, yeah. We'll figure stuff out for sure.
Okay, thanks. All right, great. So also the actual design and like lead implementation for all of these, it looks to have been divided across Lotus and the Crypto Net Lab. Crypto Net Lab is where a lot of these originated, except for FIP29, which as mentioned is going to, the design of which is going to be led by Stephen and the Venus team. Jennifer.
Yes, I think like FIP41 is relatively like new. Like I'm wondering, I don't recall this has been speaking of in any core dev, so I'm wondering, Kuba, if you can
Yes,
share more.
I will be presenting it later. This call.
Perfect.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lirash, sorry for jumping the gun, Kate.
Yeah. Will Go test be available for these FIPS? I think Forrest team was asking. It'll be relatively good if the Go tests are available, and then the team can translate them into Rust tests.
Which FIPS do you mean? Because the 34, the 34 and 41 are 100% within actors. Like they are self-contained within actors. 41 exposes new methods which can be tested externally. But like we have tests for them within the actors. If we are talking about like consensus tests, like consensus test vectors will for sure. They will for sure be updated as part of FIP, like as part of the code for FIP 34, because it changes the behavior of actors. And if FIP 41 goes through, then we will add new test vectors for FIP 41 as well.
Cool, awesome. David, did you have anything on the testing?
No comments.
Okay, all right, cool. Thanks, guys.
Any other questions?
I have a question on the assumption. I don't know if it's the right time or.
Yeah, go ahead.
I saw the second point saying like timeline is dependent on expectation around FVM M2. I'm wondering, what does that mean? How are we going to make a decision? And like, what's the decision like factors? When will we make the final decision basically? Because I don't want to change things. I don't want to spend like 2 months planning and then somehow everything just like shaken up.
Yeah, I don't think anyone, don't want that. I also am very careful because I don't want everyone to plan around an upgrade date just for us to have like a governance technicality around like the completion of a FIP draft, potentially delay anything, and that would not be particularly efficient. This is something that had been communicated originally in the V17 planning thread on the TPM repo. I should have written timeline is partly or partially dependent on expectations around M2. If there's a really strong push, obviously we know like the programmable storage contracts are a community priority. If the FVM team also is really focused on landing M2 before the end of the year, it's something to consider when we look at this upgrade cycle. If we're looking to finish some of the like systems design for this bottom FIP, decoupling Filecoin Plus from Marketplace, early September, does that push us out even further to October? Wouldn't give us enough time for M2. Maybe negligible, but it is a conversation worth also having with the FVM team more broadly to make sure that everyone's expectations are in the same place. But in terms of actually making the decision, once we have a confirmed list of FIPs, which again won't happen today, but should happen pretty soon, we can assert a timeline a little bit more clearly and operate on that. Maybe there will be some flexibility over the next couple of weeks, but by the beginning of August, we should know.
beginning of August sounds perfect to me. I also want to make a very strong proposal. It's like no matter what V17 will be, like either it's this FIP or M2, I want like the network upgrade. I want to propose the network upgrade that introduced FVM M.2.1 to be solely the only thing that we will do is FVM M2.1. Unless there's a very urgent network security thing we have to fix. Other than that, I would strongly propose to not consider any other FIPs, even it's like implemented or whatever, because like the change is way dramatic than even M1. Like for M1, we already see some like, not like the network is still very well like alive, but we are seeing some like bumps, but like M2.1 is going to be more serious than that. So I'm wondering if that is something that we can agree on early in the stage. I'm also curious what others are thinking about this proposal.
I think that's great to note. I think we want to also make sure that Kuba has enough time to talk through the forward compatibility FIP. But I think that what you just said, Jennifer, is most people's preference also, especially within this call. So we should, I think, operate on that assumption going forward when we talk about V18, because it was sort of how we approached V16 too, even if it wasn't super explicit in that regard. We're going to have a lot of notes from this meeting also. Anything else? Okay, then let's keep cruising and dive then into FIP 41. Kuba, you're welcome to present however you'd like. I know you joined us. Yeah.
Could I share my screen? I need.
Yep. One second.
Permission.
Yep. There you go.
All right. Do you guys see these? The FIP screen? Yeah, I think you do.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So the title is Forward Compatibility for PreCommit and Replica Update, and the reason it's called Forward Compatibility is we are predicting a change that will make this future, and we are making a change now that will make this change easier. So we know that we are moving towards programmable storage markets and user programmability for storage, especially storage markets. We want to enable users to create their own kinds of storage products. And one important change in that system is being able is the DLIDs not being like, we don't have DLID on our one market. We'll have different DLIDs on different markets. They might be numeric, they might be hashes, they might be something else. This means that we no longer will be able to use straight DLIDs for during pre-commit and proof commit stages, and we cannot trust the markets either. This is why in future we'll be using unsealed sector CID instead of DLIDs during pre-commit stage. But today we're still continuing to use DLIDs. So today what happens is during pre-commit stage we accept DLIDs, and at later stages of the sector onboarding we use these DLIDs and market actor, our one true and only market actor, to compute the unsealed sector CID. There are some changes that are coming that were already accepted as the pre-commit deposit in the pre-commit deposit, where we shuffled around where we access the COMD. So the pre-commit deposit FIP moved the unsealed sector CID, also known as COMD, computation from proof commit stage to pre-commit stage. And here we are allowing the storage providers to pass the explicit unsealed sector CID during pre-commit by adding a new method number 28, with the working name is pre-commit sector batch 2. We don't need pre-commit sector because internally it just forwards it to PreCommit sector batch. So PreCommit sector is not needed. And this method is a clear copy, carbon copy of PreCommit sector batch with following changes. It removes the non-functional CC upgrade fields, as you can see over here, from the arguments. It introduces the unsealed sector CID field, which is a tagged union of CID and none. That signifies that the unsealed sector CID corresponds to the CID of a empty C/CC sector of that given type and size. And the method will verify that unsealed sector CID is passed in this as this argument is consistent with the unsealed sector CID computed by the DLIDs. So the reason, again, why we're doing it in future will be ignoring this DLIDs field, and the deals will get approved based on inclusion proofs into the unsealed sector CID at the proof commit stage. So the reason why we're doing it right now and not in upgrade or 2 when it's actually useful is that it makes the transition to it easier, because storage providers can, like, after this lands on chain, can start using this method. We'll deprecate the old method then, and at the next upgrade we can assume that the old method is unused and every message contains the unsealed sector CID. We cannot assume we will disallow using it anymore. We can't do that right away within one upgrade, because the old messages would fail then, and we don't want to we don't want that. The same change, almost the same change, happens to proof replica updates. Method number 29, called proof replica updates 2, which is a carbon copy of proof replica upgrades, introduces a new unsealed CID of type CID. It's type CID instead of option CID as a pre-commit, because there's no reason to optimize the 0 CC, because for pre-commit, the 0 sectors are major use case. For proof replica update, they aren't. And same, we introduce the field and we verify that it is consistent with the LIDs. That's roughly it. It's primarily a change to the actors. The implementations themselves don't have to do anything for it. At this point in time, we'll add language to this fib. One piece of language that's missing is that we recommend deprecating the old methods right away after this upgrade lands, and we recommend that the new methods start being used right away. So whenever we need everyone to use the new methods, they are already being used. Any questions?
Yeah, I guess I want to understand. So the way it sounds to me is that the motivation for having the 2 methods is mostly to facilitate a smooth upgrade. So we don't want messages which were sent before the upgrade to be rejected after the upgrade, for example. Is
yes.
that, would you say that? Okay, so it's more that than anything. So you could also say it like allows some time for node developers to like create the right endpoints and grab the COMD and put it in. But that's maybe secondary.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so this does make sense, I guess. I mean, I think this is something people have talked about, and I'm just wondering like what the other options are, and like I guess like the trade-off here, which it seems reasonable, is that you have this like proliferation of code for a little bit, and then this proliferation of method numbers on the actor, which is like probably fine, but I don't know. Like it would be nice to think about. I'm sure you thought about. So like what goes wrong if we were to do some kind of like node based filtering? Like, hey, just don't use. I guess it just becomes more complicated on the node, right? Like you have to say, don't submit a pre-commit in between like this period, and then use the new params for the next time. Yes.
That's an alternative that we could use. We decided to go with this path because, one, it isn't that big of a change, like that big of a increase in the code size. Like, yeah, as you mentioned, the alternative is like I call this like rolling update, because there's a rollover period where both things are accepted, which is the period will be after the next upgrade, the whole up until the next upgrade. After that, that's the rollover period in this case. The alternative is atomic update, when at the epoch boundary we switch to using the new method. In theory, we could do like make some mess with decoding and like decode both things, but I don't think it's worth the complexity there. Yes, it includes increases the method number, but I don't think it's an issue. The old methods will get deprecated after this lands.
Yeah, that makes sense. And hey, it's a nice way. Like, clearly this has been a problem because we've been putting off removing the 4 0 bytes, which have been blowing up the param size. So that'll be nice to get rid of those. I guess, are you imagining that like the old methods, so the subsequent upgrade, the old methods become like immediate abort?
Local.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes, exactly. And Jennifer asked in chat, so no state migration for the first upgrade. This itself doesn't require the state migration. The reason why we can avoid this state migration is because the changes that were done during the pre-commit deposit FIP will require migration. So that's also why currently both these FIPs are implemented as one code change, although removing this feature, this FIP out of this code change, which is in built-in actors, is trivial. It's just stripping the entry points. Any more questions?
Oh, sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Like the PCD change, that still requires a state migration on the pre-commit info, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And we are using it like because this allows us to combine both of those changes. Like doing both of those changes at once results in smaller change overall.
And to be clear, so that's sector pre-commit info object that you have there. That's a new picture of the sector pre-commit info, like as a result of the sounds good.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know. I'm unhappy that we have to do this, but I also don't think, like, it just feels like I wish we had a nicer answer here. I do think the atomic switch would just be too messy. We kind of got a taste of that with the V16 upgrade, where we didn't, make any messages invalid, but just like the gas changes alone caused some chaos. And obviously pre-commit sector is a pretty important method that we can't just like say we'll disable for 1 to 2 days. So I do think this is the best option. I think this is what we should do. I wish we had something better, but
yeah, like as I said, like we were looking for the simplest solution. Like introducing new method numbers and new method names is a bit messy, but at the end of the day, like introducing like hidden decoding, like conditional decoding is even more messy. So and atomic switch causes a mess during upgrade, which is a critical moment of the network. So
I'm starting to imagine, like, I mean, this is probably not something that rises to the importance of actually doing, but like if the method number stuff becomes a problem, we could use the rolling upgrade thing to move, we could duplicate methods into the old positions. We could like pack method numbers back.
Yeah, but there's no reason to then one of the proposals that's the method numbers are not worth dying over. And one of the proposals for the interface is using hashes as hashes like truncated to 32 bits as method numbers for interfaces and so on. Also,
you're talking about the like user to system actor API.
Yeah.
Cool. What would that this is a bit of a like tangent, but what would that be a hash of?
It would be a hash of method name.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think that's open in FIPS repo. Can
nice. That sounds
as a discussion. Any more questions? Well, I find this. All right. If there are no more questions, then it's back to you, Caitlin.
Thanks, Kuba. Your timing is great. That brings us right to the end of the meeting. So If no one has any other questions, items, or needs that they want to flag, I think we're good for this week. We have another meeting later this afternoon. It's at midnight UTC. Kuba, I don't think you'll be able to attend that one. So we'll direct everyone to the recording of this call. But thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, if there are any questions during that meeting, please like direct them to discussion of the FIP or something like that, and or Slack. They can always message me on Slack, and I'll answer the questions.
Thanks. That meeting is usually just Stephen Lee from the Venus team and Alex North, so it should be okay.
Alex also should be able to answer your questions about that. So
great. Great. If there's nothing else, then we can end for today. Thanks everyone, and looking forward to seeing you all at our next meeting on August 4th.